I don't think it was fully thought out, the helmet, exactly what they would do with it or why it was there.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with the idea that it has to look like an F1 car to this extent.
What is widening your wheel by 1mm going to do to the look of your car? It's just going to make the performance worse.
Well, I think they've half-baked it.
Say they're using glue. If they haven't glued it properly, it could just, in theory, snap off.
Hopefully there'll be a lot more variation than there has been in previous years.
I think this is just going to make the cars look even less like an F1 car than they did before.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Off the Track. My name is Pete and I'm joined by Jesse Stevens.
Hello.
Alex.
Hello.
Will.
Hello.
Matt.
Hey.
Anas.
Hey.
Javier.
Hello.
And James.
Hello.
So we're going to be taking a quick look at the brand new 2023 technical regulations, some of the biggest changes in years. And Jesse, do you want to start us off? What has changed with these regulations?
Well, there's a long list. So all the way, probably the biggest and most notable difference is the halo. We'll get to that in a minute, but I think we're going to touch on kind of the other rules first and be a bit quicker about those, and then we can actually spend some discussion time talking about the halo and the front wing and the rear wing and stuff like that. So we'll start off with the kind of T3.4, which is the width of the car has been forced to be wider. Now it's the absolute minimum is 65. And yeah, so now to put it in perspective, the model block is 65 millimeters wide in total. So I just kind of would like to open the question, are there any challenges of having a car being like wider than it was before?
Yeah, well, obviously I think when you've got such a little difference between the actual width of the block and the width that your car has to be, you're going to have to be a bit more careful with your tolerancing, especially in manufacturing. There's not as much leverage for teams to sort of, do different things and edit it. And I mean, just from a design perspective, like you're going to have it be that absolute maximum width, which obviously is quite restricting in a way, I suppose.
Jesse, you were saying that if there were imperfections in the body, it could cause issues. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I just think that, say, if you're having to finish the car, and obviously if you're designing a car normally, you'd want it to be bigger than 65 mil wide. So you can't have any more body there. You have to, putty it up, but you're not allowed to. You'd have to surface finish it if you would say the side pods were the same width as the wheels or something like that, which ends up being a bigger challenge for a team because now you have to actually. It's challenging, but it's actually a good kind of point of where do you make a compromise? What do you do? Do you find unique ways around it? But I think the general theme of these rules is you're gonna have to make a lot more compromises than you did before. And I think we're already seeing that the rules kind of suck. The rules have changed a lot, but it's not. I think it's probably our mindsets from having such nice rules for so long that now we've got bad rules, or not bad rules, but more restrictive rules that now we have to find solutions that aren't necessarily the best solution.
I just want to open up to current competitors here going to the World Finals this year. What do you make of all of these rules? Like, do you think you're going to be able to cope well? Let's start with Javier. Javier, what do you think about the rules? What was your reaction when you first saw them?
Yeah, no, it was a massive surprise. Obviously, I don't think a few of us, well, too many of us were expecting such a massive change. But yeah, no, it's exciting. Obviously, it's a massive challenge and it kind of levels the playing field, which is quite good. And obviously at the World Finals, it'll be interesting to see all different designs and hopefully there'll be a lot more variation than there has been in previous years, just because obviously we've had the same set of rules for so long.
Why do we think it levels the playing field in general? Because I would actually think that having, the cars that have been so the same for so long, you can just look at good cars and kind of design a car from there. Whereas now, like the teams with mentors and everything like that, they've got access to more knowledge. So why do we think this levels the playing field?
Yeah, I don't know. In terms of when I was mentioning leveling the playing field, I suppose that is because, teams have qualified months ago and there's still teams to qualify now for the World Finals. So by having these regulations all put out at the same time for everybody, it being such a massive change, not being able to like take from other previous cars. I see from your perspective in the way of like, if you've got professionals in the industry telling you how you can, design your car, obviously that's going to be a massive advantage. But at the end of the day, you're the ones who are having to put it together. So yeah.
Yeah, I just add to that. I think a great deal of the advantage that comes from knowledge and sort of a legacy, particularly like within your school, if you do have one in schools, comes from like the refinement that occurs not just in a season, but across like years of different teams developing. So even though, yeah, it is quite possible you can sort of look at a car and go, this is generally what's working over this set of regulations. A lot of the fine tuning, I think, is really iterative and builds up over years. And so I think when you do a drastic change like this, it changes it. Also, I think we'll find that a lot of the teams that have advantages at this World Finals have probably done something a bit different with these regulations. They've found a way to make them work better than other teams. And I think there's something less iterative about that and more creative. It'll be teams that have been able to come up with a one-off solution to this set of regs in this period of time, and that gives them the advantage. And I think that can be perceived as more fair or more level because no team has that history of iteration. Everyone's starting from a blank slate. They're all going to be throwing ideas around the engineering teams now. And I think at this World Finals, we'll see that the engineering teams that can bounce the best ideas off each other and just find the best solution will be the ones that succeed, as opposed to the ones that just have the longest period of iteration and refinement.
I think that summarizes very well. I think that does very well. So we'll move on to the next rule that's changed. It's the starters during racing rule has actually changed. Now your car must be designed so you don't need any more components than what is listed in T3.9, which is nose cone and front wing, rear wing, front wheel support, rear wheels and rear wheel support, and the quantities have changed. Nothing really of note there except the kind of the penalty for introducing new components is kind of good. I'm not sure if they're going to, because they've introduced that, they might not penalize breakages so much. I would think that if you're implementing a penalty per component, that you wouldn't penalize cars that just fall apart but can use the same components, but I'm not sure. I think it's a better way of doing it, but we'll wait and see because we don't have the comp regs. So
wouldn't be surprised too if they brought that in as a supplement to the nose cone changeover challenge, because they don't want teams being penalized thinking that if our nose cone falls off mid-race, they're going to be at a huge disadvantage. So it sort of lightens the penalty on that a bit if teams looking to pursue that challenge.
We'll talk about that nose cone challenge later. So now the next annoying rule is the virtual cargo, which has changed. It's actually gotten about 15 mil thicker than it was before, and this is really gonna it's gonna prescribe what cars look like a lot more, in my opinion, because you have to have a body a lot further out than you did before, and you've only really got a certain area where the body can exist and your car can exist between the minimum of the minimum of the virtual cargo and the minimum width. So you still, I think it's going to be quite a lot of cars, especially in where the virtual cargo is going to look very similar. Is that kind of general consensus across everyone, or?
Yeah, I think there's going to be like less ability to explore like hugely varying ideas. But I think the variations will happen with the front wings, which we'll go on to later, and the rear wings. Stuff like that. So, yeah.
Do we actually think they should have kept the virtual cargo?
You already have the exclusion zones, which take a lot of design freedom. And then you have the stuff with the halo, which you have to fit somehow as well. And then the virtual cargo as well. I think you wouldn't have needed the virtual cargo. You already restricted the design so much that teams could come up with innovative ways already around these regulations. But now adding a virtual cargo as well will restrict the design a lot, I think.
Do we? Because I think the virtual cargo actually has a negative impact on the competition, because you have to have a car body roughly. Everyone's car body has some kind of 10 millimeter thickness area in it where it just kind of exists for a while, and it kind of sucks. And I think the whole idea is so some teams don't just come up and shatter their car to pieces more than anything else. But at this point in time, the challenge is not. You should not have a team that doesn't know how to design a car at the World Finals. That's kind of the simple aspect now. So is there really a need to protect, that kind of area of the car? Because it doesn't exist for, making the car look like an F1 car or anything like that. It just kind of exists to keep body there so it doesn't break.
Yeah, look, I think it's probably still necessary in some form, but I don't think it needs to be this big. I think it's kind of crazy, the actual size of it, because like you said, it's just restrictive on body shape. And I mean, the whole point of new regulations is to try and break up the monotony of different cars.
One thing I was thinking about the virtual cargo just then Is your Halo allowed to fit within the virtual cargo? And if so, if it isn't, okay, then you're shaking your head. So
the virtual cargo
then, yeah,
must be
what's
completely encompassed
the
by the
need for
body.
it then?
So no.
Body, okay. Yeah, so then that comes into question, then why do you need it? Because now you've got two real big spaces that has to have body around it, or it has to be protected by body. So yeah, there's no big need for it at the moment, I would think.
Wait, so what's the other regulation?
Oh, so for the virtual cargo, obviously you've got the virtual cargo, which has to exist purely in the F1 model block body, and then you've got the Halo on top of it. So there's the two different prescribed areas where you have to have, body, or you have two prescribed areas where you probably, the driver and the Halo kind of occupies what the virtual cargo did. So now it's just kind of a double rule, if that makes, the virtual cargo is kind of redundant.
But the Halo doesn't actually prescribe like a minimum thickness of the body beneath it or anything, does it?
That's sort of what I was thinking about, because there's now two spaces. Yeah, there's no real big need. But
you'd think even that would be sufficient in doing what a virtual cargo does. If they just changed that, like if they said you need at least, say, 10 mil below the Halo, that would do enough in actually, stopping, teams rocking up with wafer cars. But it doesn't restrict it as much as the current virtual cargo does.
Well, I don't know. This is just a kind of discussion point for me, but I don't actually think there's a problem with wafer cars as long as they don't break. And if cars are breaking, too bad. Like, bad luck. You did a bad job in the, not in a bad way, but any team that's like designing a car well should know that their car's not going to break with accurate levels of kind of tolerance and stuff like that. So there's no real reason to have them, designing a car and then telling them this is kind of, because I only think it exists to kind of force teams to have body that isn't just a canister housing on wheels. But you can do that. The Halo already stops that from happening.
Well, the other thing is even the new weight test on the Halo probably does the same thing. Like if you've got a car that's tiny, like really thin, you'd think that test would put enough stress to actually sort out a car that's going to break on the track and one that isn't.
And even if because that would test, laterally, but if you were doing like a vertical test, you just put a weight on top of the car so it doesn't snap in two. Yeah. So like you could really adjust the test so you don't have wafer cars. But
replace a volume test with a load test of some sort. Yeah.
Let's move on to the Halo then and the helmet and all of that. Like, generally, what do we think about the Halo and its inclusion? And I noticed that a few of us have noticed this, that at the end in the I think it's in the appendix, they've put the old deceleration system in. Now, I thought the whole point of the new Halo was so that it's going to go into a new deceleration system. I think, is that possibly an error, or they haven't released that yet? Is my thinking. I don't think they've released the new deceleration system, because surely it's not just going to be the brushes.
Yeah, you'd think if they're implementing the Halo to act as a form of the deceleration system, they wouldn't just keep the old brushes. So I think there is the element there that they haven't fully finished the design or finalized it. So they've kind of put a placeholder there. But then I've even noticed myself in the rules that it says teams can use their own deceleration systems. So I'm not sure if they're keeping this exactly for the Worlds, but it brings up an important question. Would you use your own? And then why would the Halo be implemented if it gives teams the option to use their own?
To be honest, I think what I'm seeing it as a secondary decel system. So they've got the Halo decel with the however they do it, which they haven't finalized probably. And then the secondary decel, the brushes or the towels or whatever you want to use for your own as a backup in case the Halo goes terribly wrong.
I just, from a decel point, I think it's just too small a geometry to actually be useful. Like, you're assuming that a robust system is going to be fitting within, 6 mil, 7 mil, and it's going to be stopping a car accurately every time. And
they're testing it with a 1 kilo load as well. Is that a lot? I don't know if that's a lot, but is that a lot to be putting on that? Halo?
for that kind of the car would under normally not experience that kind of loading. So for it to suddenly have to experience this kind of loading, because the loading of hitting a tower with your front wing is a lot different to the loading of sustained loading, because the car can kind of bounce and drop off, whereas when the car's under continuous load, it's fatiguing, and then you're going to get material failure more than anything else. So I really think it's pointless, if I'm being not pointless altogether, but I think from like a stopping point standard, which I think was mentioned in the episode before they released it from the podcast at the the F1 in School's official podcast, I think they mentioned that was the reason they brought it in. But I don't think that's a very logical reason. However, I do think it does have a place. I think the Halo actually is a good idea in general, and I think we don't know much about the stopping system yet, so we should probably not speculate too much on that. But in general, what is everyone's thoughts on the actual Halo itself?
One thing on the stopping system, I still think that the one in the regulations would kind of work with the Halo, because there's like the minimum height of the Halo, which is like 35 millimeters, and then the brushes, they have like an incline, and it starts at 38, and I think it ends at 11. So the brushes would actually, I think, if you design your car as the regulations intend, it would hit the deceleration system with the Halo. But because the brushes are from the side, it would more like use the sides of the Halo and more the helmet. So yeah,
well,
it might work.
What I've also noticed is they've got a circular notch, and the circular notch is kind of a very distinct point where it looks like it looks like they might have like a bar that sits kind of low, and then it raises up. It raises up and follows kind of the angle of attack of the Halo
body.
So it hits the Halo, but if your wheels are very high, I mean it's going to be 34. But if the car's moving unpredictably at all, a bar like that sticking out on the track is just going to destroy your car.
Yeah, well, and that's the problem is I feel like more often than not, they're not actually going straight. They're coming in on a slight angle or, I don't know. To me, the actual Halo seems like as a stopping system a bit over-engineered. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to me like the best solution to have one particular point like that. And I think what Matt said is interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if at this World Finals, at least, they have a contingency plan. Because especially when teams are just starting to work with it for the first time, I'd imagine there'll be quite a bit of difference and compliance issues. And so I don't know if they'll get every team successfully using it, if the new deceleration system's even up then.
I mean, it says you have teams will have the choice to use their own decel. So, I mean, if a team had the choice.
Well, yeah, that seems bizarre too, though. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just use your own?
I think I think what they might be trying to do is, as you were saying, Will, was like try and test to see on the few teams that do use it, is it actually a system that can work in a competition scenario, and then next year outlaw it or slowly reel it in, so in a few years they're not using, because to be honest, although the towers work and the brushes work, it doesn't look great. It really doesn't look great, and it's not a great look when you've got the high up people at a World Finals event standing there, and then they're just seeing a car hit some towers. Like it's not an overall professional look when the rest of it tries to give quite a professional vibe.
Yes, for sure.
So I think eventually it will be a good thing, but right now it's kind of, I don't know how it's going to work and if it's going to be any use.
Let's talk about the. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the Halo?
I mean, what I was thinking is normally if you wouldn't have had that Halo there, you would just have car body. So you'd even be, I think, more stable than just having an additional component which needs gluing and so on. So, like, I don't know what is very beneficial for braking, because normally the way you design a car is you just have like car body on there instead of the Halo. So if they actually keep the brushes and there's nothing, like no deceleration system, which is very suiting to the Halo itself, then I think, it wouldn't play that much of a role.
That can also highlight like how are teams going to attach this to their car, because if they haven't, say they're using glue, if they haven't glued it properly or done it in a right way, when it goes to do the actual test on the Halo for the weight, it could just in theory snap off. So it puts a lot of emphasis on kind of the manufacturability of your car and how you're going to assemble it all together.
I think you've raised a great point there in general as well. I think, say the car hits it, it's not just creating it's creating a shear force when you're doing it. So it's going to try and tear the thing off the car, and more likely than not, it could just rip straight off. But also it could just, snap the car in two further down, because there's a lot of internal forces that are going to be experienced by this. And if it goes even so slightly wrong, it'll just go terribly wrong, because these cars are not designed to, they're designed to hit a car, and they're designed to, hit the end of the track and then kind of just crumple or, hit one way. So if they've got any other forces that aren't experienced, our car snap very quickly. So I think this might actually break a lot more cars than be useful for. And also, how would teams replicate stopping at stopping at their schools or something like that? You won't probably be able to test it for a while. But I think we've probably talked enough about stopping. So
let's talk about the next thing that's another compulsory thing, and that's the helmet. Well, it's not really anything that's going to serve a purpose, is it? It's just really for aesthetics. But you can put it anywhere, right? It doesn't actually say where you have to put it. Not that putting it anywhere else would be advantageous, would it?
It could be. We haven't tested it yet.
Oh yeah.
But you could put it on your nose cone. You could put it, near your rear wing. You could put it on top of your chamber if you've got the thickness. It should probably just be part of the halo. It should probably just be part of the assailant.
Realistically, and this might sound really far-fetched, but what if you made it out of the F1 model block and then just shoved it in the car somewhere?
That's true, actually. Yeah, you could just define it in the block.
No.
Does it say it has to be visible?
No.
It doesn't say it has to be visible anyway.
So you could literally just have an exclusion zone like a virtual cargo where it just
you
exists.
could just define it in the body. But see, I'd imagine they'll
Could you
just
drill a hole
rectify
through
that.
it and use it as your tether line guide?
No, it says no dimensional changes, unfortunately.
But it does raise a question of, would we be able to kind of just integrate it in the body? Like Matt was saying, it doesn't specify that it has to be in plain sight or anything. So teams can integrate it into their model block, and it then kind of as well, I don't think it was fully thought out, the helmet, exactly what they would do with it or why it was there. I think more so it was kind of just thought of as an appearance wise, because it makes the car look more like F1.
Yeah.
No.
Do they specify how many helmets you can have?
No.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree with that though. I think it's kind of silly, but the absurdity of it goes to show. I think it's just kind of it's just chucked in there, like you said, to make it look like an F1 car. For me, that's probably my biggest problem I have with the whole set of regs. Is I don't know if I necessarily agree with the idea that it has to look like an F1 car to this extent. The Halo makes sense on an actual F1 car for the purpose it serves, but I don't know if it necessarily belongs on an F1 school's car.
I think, as someone who's purely non-engineering, if you just look at it and you don't know what the challenge is, you can instantly recognize, okay, that's like F1. That's like a mini F1 car.
Yes.
Whereas with the previous design, you couldn't really do that. And mainly, to be honest, it's the halo and the helmet.
But do you think, say, I don't know, I understand having a helmet, but do you think, having a halo is a distinctive feature for an F1 car for, the people that watch F1, but for the general public, I think people still have an image of an F1 car from 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not, if I see an F1 car without a halo, I don't notice the halo not being there. But if you see this massive halo with a tiny little head hiding behind it, you're not thinking, oh, this is an F1 car straight away. We just see it like that because we like F1.
That's very true.
And the other thing is, I think they've obviously designed this model car to look like how they want it to. So I think it'll be interesting to see how cars actually turn out when people start trying to optimize the regs. Because I don't know if they'll end up looking like, I think the triple element front wing on the model car makes it look a lot more like an actual F1 car, but I'd imagine that that'll be probably absent from most competitors. So I don't know how effective it'll even be in achieving their goal once it actually goes through. Because like you said, I don't know if the halo is the most recognizable part.
Another thing that they've added is the team number, which has to have a minimum height of 4 millimeters. I don't think that's a terrible thing.
To be honest, I think what that's doing is it's providing some sort of place that the halo has to go, because they're basically saying you can't put it in front of, where does it say the team number has to go? Between reference plane A and the front edge of the halo. So you can't put the front edge of your halo in front of reference plane A.
Mm.
And it's just a way of restricting where the halo can go a bit, rather than just making it your front wing and telling it whatever.
I think we'll probably explore the number. Well, then where does the number have to be? Oh, sorry, reference plane A.
Reference plane A is...
Where is reference plane A?
Oh, God.
I think it's the center of the wheels,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's the center.
Oh, it's in front of the wheels.
No, it's 16 mil off the front of the front axle.
Yeah, so you could probably start your halo, quite early on in your car design. So you're probably not going to get a lot of cars that actually, adhere to what the F1 model car does. And if you do, you're probably not going to do very well. Because if you look at the previous regs car, the regs car was awful, but it showed the regs really well. Whereas this car is showing you kind of what they want you to do, and they're not gonna really achieve that, I don't think.
All right, let's jump to the next change, which is T7.2, I think, and it's the distance between opposing wheels, and they've changed the front axle distance. Am I correct in saying that to 38 mils?
Peter, they changed 6.1 as well.
6.1, my bad.
They shrunk the tether guide space from 15 to 10. But I'm not entirely sure what that achieves.
Makes the cars less stable. Not by much, but no real point is there.
Yeah, T7.2, T7.3, 7.4 changes there. I mean, is that going to be a big thing? The wheelbase has changed. What do the engineers think about that?
Well, this is the kind of... It makes your car minimum width again. So you have to effectively... The wheels and then the tread. So the distance between the two wheels, the internal distance and then the wheels is just 65 mils, isn't it? Or roughly around that. So it means that you end up having to... it's just going to make the design a bit harder, but I think it's actually probably a bad thing, because then you're not you're not giving teams a bit more freedom to actually design around the rules. I think it's a very prescriptive rule where it just kind of means your wheels are here and they have to exist here, whereas there's no real downside to having your wheels. There's not no downside, but in the regulations, they're not going to kill the cars by having the wheels super inwards or super outwards. Like, teams aren't going to, have two wheels identical next to each other, but I think the 25 or the 30 mil thickness between the front wheels was kind of acceptable before. What about everyone else?
Yeah, maybe they're going for that F1 look again. Obviously, it's kind of replicating the same sort of dimensions as a Formula One car.
Well, I firstly think by extending out the wheelbase, it's probably making your car a bit more stable, so that always helps. And also distance between opposing wheels, it makes it more stable, but it also makes it look like an F1 car, because now the wheels are on the far outside, not close inside, and it's pretty much making them do what they want to do.
Do we think we're going to see a lot of teams with really wide car bodies?
Yeah.
Like, with body pretty much in between the two front axles?
Yep.
Because, that's one solution, or you just kind of take the penalty and just have a stick from the center. I think this is just going to make the cars look even less like an F1 car than they did before.
Well, Jesse, you said the model block was 65 wide, right?
Yeah.
So that's already on the minimum. The wheels, I did some quick mental maths. And with the wheel thickness and the front and rear axles, neither of them actually add up to 65. So if you're going for absolute minimums for any of them, for the wheelbases, then you're not going to hit the 65 min, except for the body.
Yeah, look, like you said, I think at the end of the day, I don't think it'll actually end up looking more like an F1 car in this case either. I think most teams will end up just extruding the body out to as close to the wheels as they can get, and you just get wide cars.
And they're going to look ugly.
All right. Should we jump
out
to
of
the
these
next one?
rigs, the ones that I hate is T7.4, Peter. That is annoying.
And why is that? What's
Making those
annoying about that
wheels
one?
wider. Mainly just purpose because of my own team. We may or may not have had wheels that were to last year's regulations made, and then
That's
because I
annoying.
thought the wheel systems wouldn't change,
Yeah,
So you guys are
and
stupid,
then
is what you're
I
saying.
saw that come
So you
out,
guys
and I was
would've-
like,
no. So you guys didn't
Oh,
read
100%.
the rules. Can you just turn onto the competition with them and see what they say?
they've changed. Well, they're going to be on
Like,
our
we
display
broke the
cars,
rules
so
because of sustainability.
I still don't get the
Go on,
point.
sorry, James.
I still don't get the point of changing them. No, I still don't get the point of changing them from what they were last year, because they changed them last year, so they are bigger, and then I still don't get the point of changing them again. Because like, what is widening your wheel by 1 millimeter going to do to the look of your car? It's just going to make the performance worse.
I have a feeling now reading
But
the
you're
rule
right.
that the distance between opposing front wheels is so they can have a mechanism sit in the middle of it.
Which
What
mechanism,
kind of
sorry?
mechanism?
Like the stopping
Yeah.
mechanism that catches the halo can kind of sit in the middle of those two wheels so it doesn't hit the front wheels.
Again, though, like there's no way your car's coming in that straight, that
No.
central.
Unless they can actually tension the track for once.
Yeah.
No, it's still not happening.
No, exactly. They use quite a taut weight and it still shoots off.
Let's jump forward to T7.13, which is the wheel safety test. And that's hanging a 100 gram weight suspended from each wheel, using a 3-fingered claw on the wheel edge. So, yeah, that seems quite interesting. Is it because teams had
What happened-
wheels falling off?
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't think the competition had any teams with wheels falling off mid-race or anything. I haven't heard anything about that.
Is it because
Something I want to know is how would that test work? How would that test work if your wheels are like sort of flush up against the sidewall of your car? How are they going to get the claws like in and around that? Hold on, I wish I had an example.
Hopefully it fits within the 5 mil.
But isn't there no exclusion zone on that inside?
Oh yeah, you're right. There is none.
Between the wheel and the body.
Yeah,
But you
But why
want
would
to,
you
I
want
think,
it
as close as
touching-
possible. Yeah.
but like
Or you want
even
it close.
yeah, you would want it
You want it
close.
as close as possible, but you don't want it touching.
Well, unless though, now that they've widened the distance, maybe it is optimal to what's it called, especially with the different thicknesses. I know a team at our school a while back we're toying with, but it didn't really work because the distances didn't really make sense. But maybe it does now. Was if you have the outside edges of your wheels flush, and then you actually do leave a space between the body and the wheels, like make that as big as possible, rather than run them flush. So I don't know. Maybe that's actually feasible now.
What I also don't understand is that, like, if there's no real, it says to prevent wheel detachment during racing, the rules exist, right? But some of the bearings used at that size do not have they do not have the stress levels to kind of, or the materials, sorry, I'm saying this wrong, but they do not have the strength properties to actually withstand and still perform at the level. Like, our car wouldn't pass that, and we would be really slow and we wouldn't win. Well, not win, but you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't be fast because the bearings we use were incredibly fragile. So it's kind of just also restricting how you can actually make your car faster in these very prescriptive rules.
And again, I'm not sure how
But
many wheels are encountering, a force of 100 grams. That's not right, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm not sure many wheels
especially
are,
on that direction.
Yeah.
Also, they want to make a big deal about, the parts are interchangeable and everything like that. And if your parts, I would think that you could create mechanisms where you would have them when they're under load, they'd lock, but when they're not under load, like not under, when they're not rotating, they kind of unlock, and then when they're rotating, they're locked in place. Like, it's just kind of stopping the interchangeability that they want to kind of bring into the comp as well. Like, I'm surprised there's not a pit stop challenge.
Yeah, swap all 4 wheels, the nose cone, and they'll give you some lollies.
Surely there has to be a bigger reason behind that. Like, it seems there doesn't really seem to be a point behind it.
Well, I think it was they were waffling on about the magnetic rear wing at the last World Finals, weren't they? It's that Irish team had it on, and I think they've inspired this whole new branch of Scottish team. Sorry, probably caused a lot of offence actually. So I apologise. I made that mistake. Yeah, no, I rescind that comment. I apologise. But yeah, obviously they enjoyed that, the judges, and want to see everyone doing it. So.
But does it, like, why?
I know, I agree. It doesn't make sense. Like you said earlier, I feel like the best cars are designed not to break.
But actually, what I think about this wheel stability safety tests is that at the last World Finals, we had teams with flying wheels off. I think it's even in the highlight video. So that might be something to prevent actually that, even though the rules say the rule is in place so that they prevent shape changing during racing, so the actual wheel deforming. But then I wouldn't understand how the test is the test procedure, because you're not putting any stress on the wheel itself, you're just pulling it off.
I think it could also be a cost-cutting measure in the very briefest of ways, because all the bearings that will break under that kind of loading are very expensive.
I agree with that. Also, like, when you're designing your wheel systems, you're not designing them to withstand force on that vector. So I think it is a weird way of actually testing it. Like, when you think about teams that run FEA testing, for instance, on their wheels, usually it's perpendicular to the track contact surface. You wouldn't actually be running it on your wheel system outwards. So I don't know what you did, Nice, in terms of testing.
Most of the wheels fall off because they hit the side meshing, right? So that's a different load altogether. It's like a kind of bending moment from the front corner of the wheel inwards. Like it creates a twisting force within the wheel, not so it's very different. I don't think a single car's wheels are pull offable with 100 grams if that's the reason it's failing.
But maybe that's exactly what they want to prevent, just so that they just want to see whether the wheel is properly attached or not. Which doesn't make sense in a world's level, because you would assume teams would be able to do that at the world stage, like to attach their wheel. But yeah.
But your car shouldn't be breaking at a world finals.
True.
I genuinely, and I know this probably comes from a point of, we're very educated in Australia, and most of us are Australian, and it's very similar in the UK and Germany. But if we were to break a car at nationals, it would, it would all go to, like, you would never make it through. Whereas, I don't think you should be competing at world finals if you can't design a car at all that is capable of, competing the basic minimum requirements of the competition.
Let's move on now to the next one, which is 8.2, 8.5. The nose cone assembly dimension is a new addition. Is that right? And the front wing and wing support structure location has changed to 8.5. Any comments on that? And then 8.6 as well, sorry, the front wing dimensions.
I mean, from my feeling, it's just like, I remember there were cars that had front wings like that. Like, if I remember Unity Racing, for example, or there were teams with a similar nose cone, but now it's like, it's compulsory for every team to have that kind of shape of the nose cone. But I think it misses the point that they want teams to make the car pretty stable. And combined with the nose cone change rule, with the challenge, I think it will make the front nose cone very unstable and fragile. And there might be the point that like, I think a lot of stresses would occur at the place where you join your nose cone with the car body. And you might see cars breaking halfway or something like that.
And that's probably why they implemented that new challenge.
Yeah, the nose cone replacement challenge.
So
So
if
you
it
have
does-
to
challenge.
You have to completely remove and well, you don't have to. It's completely optional. And if you take part in it, you have to remove and replace the car's nose cone assembly in under 60 seconds. And it's only recorded during car submission. The thing is with this one, the fastest nose changes will be nominated for the fastest nose change award. So even if you get the fastest time, you won't necessarily win the award. Is there any benefit in making a nose cone that's replaceable in under 60 seconds?
No.
I actually think there is. It's just impressing the judges. Because, I mean, part of the competition as well, you have human judges there. So if you have a team that's like, okay, no, I don't care about anything that's written in the rule that's optional, that might have like a small negative impact on the judges. But yeah, apart from that, no.
But surely if you can justify not partaking in that challenge, like if you look at that and you have a really valid reason why you're not going to do the nose cone replacement challenge, I don't see why they should be looking down on you negatively for opting out when it's clearly of no advantage for you to do it.
I don't think they would.
It's also extremely likely that award's tied to an F1 team award with a proper experience. And I know that, I don't think it's fair to kind of, not gatekeep, but, if you're giving out an award for something like that and then it's stopping you from, say, experiencing, say a pit tour when someone else, will get a pit tour for probably not probably an undeserved award. Not undeserved, but an award that doesn't really need to exist. And then, because realistically, if you design your car around the nose cone being interchangeable, you have to make compromises in other areas, which could ruin your car design, right? Or make it a lot harder. So you could potentially either make the choice of, I want my car to be good, or I want to have a good time there. On some level anyway. I think there's a way that you can kind of not trick yourself out of a award, but you're incentivizing something that has no real tangible benefit.
And it doesn't give you any points.
Make it worth 50 points and then everyone does it. Or make it worth 10 points if you can change it in a minute or something like that. Give it a small benefit and then teams will consider it.
I think what's interesting as well is that they don't state how exactly the challenge is going to work. So what I was thinking is if it's just at the submission, you could have one car which has the nose front wing not glued to it, and then you change it and then glue it. And then, wow, you did the nose cone challenge. But your wing actually is glued to the car, so...
Would they have to scrutinize it twice at submission? Because, they check the car's legal before and then check it's legal afterwards? Because the car has to be identical, and if you're changing it before submission, I don't know, just kind of...
But it's before submission, so you're not changing anything.
I think it's stupid.
Another thing I'm just looking at now is that in the car they have a magnet, what looks like a magnet on the example nose cone. But I don't know what you'd actually claim that magnet as, because it's obviously not connected to the wings. So I don't think you get away with wing support structure.
I think you still would, because it is supporting the wing.
I suppose, yeah.
But it's very... To make any useful system, you wouldn't be able to do it. Bad rule. Jesse doesn't like it.
I mean, it's not really a rule, but yeah. Bad challenge, I guess.
I think it is strange that it doesn't have a point incentive on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's been fully thought through exactly the direction they wanted to go with it.
Because, I mean, how many teams are going to take this up?
None, I would assume.
Are any of you going to take it up, competing this year?
To be honest, saying all this, we actually don't know that much about it, because they've said more to come in the competition regs. So they could say, this challenge is worth 50 points and you get a pit tour with Mercedes, in which case a lot of teams will go for the challenge. It's not likely, but it's possible.
I mean, but it's not gonna give. If they give you points, I think you're gonna get every team doing it. But there's no points.
I think it's very half-baked as well. I think they should just, if they're gonna do a pit stop, make you change the front and back wings and then all the wheels at the same time, and then say you've got 2 minutes to do it all or something like that, and then have it. a proper challenge. Make it because they don't give points away for knockouts anymore, do they?
They probably will this year. It was only because it was
They
virtual
do in a
and
physical
physical.
event because it was hybrid.
But if you're, take half the points from knockouts and give it to a pit stop, which is an important part of a race, like in a real life. So, I don't know.
That'd be cool. That'd add another dimension to the whole engineering. Like, you've got to think structurally.
It's a massive difference, and it's changing the competition without reinventing the wheel.
I think from the limited information we have, it's hard to tell what direction they'll go with it. But
I think they've left themselves open to do more, given that they've said more information is going to come in the comp regs. So
yeah,
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Do you reckon they're waiting for reaction, or do you reckon they haven't finished them yet?
Probably a bit of both.
I think it's just a case of time.
Probably a bit of both.
I don't think there is much. I don't know. I don't think there is much waiting for reaction, personally.
I think it'd be nice, like
unless they are watching this, then in which case,
I think they want to hear what teams think of it, but I don't think it plays as much as a role as we like to think.
Yeah,
how
exactly.
they're structuring the rules.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about the final change. I think it's the final change. If not, correct me. But that's the rear wing overhang, which is also new. Yeah. Any comments about that?
I like it. I think this is actually the change I'm excited for, because this offers, I think, the first time some actual efficiency gains from aerodynamics. I think you can use the air that's going through the wing, and if you design your wing smartly, to actually improve the airflow over the canister and hence improve your car time. I think it's really interesting, and I think a lot of teams it'll be a great scope for a lot of teams to kind of differentiate themselves.
I think overall, it's just going to be interesting to see how teams implement it, given that it's the first year of a big red change. If they're going to look...
It's an exciting challenge.
Yeah,
sure.
If they're going to look like the front cover here or not, who knows? If we're going to have, helmets all over the blooming front, back, everywhere, or in the inside, that's I'm interested.
What I do think, though, is they should do changes like this every year. I think changing the rules every year is a very great idea of bringing in a new challenge, because most other high school engineering challenges don't have the same rule set every time you do it. So this is a very good point to never keep the competition stale. And if they keep doing changes like this, you'll never have cars that look the same anymore or anything like that. But it just depends on how much they actually want to keep the competition innovative.
I agree. I think it's good for the competitiveness of it all, and like you said, keeping cars fresh. I'm just not sure why they've done so many at once, in my opinion. I would have thought that it might have made more sense to space them out, like add the multi-element wings one year and see what teams do with that, and then the next year do the halo or something. But I think overall it's a good thing, and it'll help, like you said, keep the competition fresh, and it'll be exciting to see what teams do with it at the World Finals.
With those multi-element wings...
How's that going?
They've always been allowed, as far as I can see. There's nothing stopping you from using them in the old regs, and there's nothing enticing you to use them in the new ones. So I don't really understand the point.
Well, the biggest thing the problem is the clear airspace, right? So they've changed how that's measured now, so that if you have a multi-element wing, they can overlap, and you don't need the 5 mil in between the two. In the past, if you had two elements vertically overlapping, they had to be 5 mil apart. So all of a sudden, with the thickness plus 5 mil clear, you had 15 mil of wing around the whole thing, including the clear airspace, I mean. Whereas this way, you could have two elements this close to each other, 2 mil apart or something, and you measure the overall airspace. But
okay.
Do we think they should have made it mandatory to have have a multi-element wing? Because I think that would have been so much better if you had... Yeah. If you made it mandatory, because it would have actually changed what front wings look like. Yeah.
I think something like that would be cool. If every year it'd be something like that, they go this year, bang, the changes, multi-element wings or something, and every team sees what they can do with that, and it, adds a bit of excitement for that year.
I have a feeling they're kind of easing it in, and then either next year or 2 years down the track, then it'll become mandated, is my feeling.
I think they looked sick. The triple element wing they've got on the front of that car is mad.
I'd be interested to see if it actually survives the end of the track.
Yeah, well, another problem is finishing it. Like, imagine trying to get paint evenly spread in between there. That's a nightmare.
Another great challenge for another engineering depth of the competition. Like, it gives you a lot more scope to actually not innovate as such, but show your engineering prowess in more than just the car's fast and it's in a portfolio.
100%.
Yeah, I think these new regulations really do a push for making sure like teams' assembly and their manufacturing is really at a high standard, especially with, as we discussed earlier, like the Halo and its weight test and the multi-element wing, finishing it and painting it.
I reckon
But now it's optional, right? So why would a team want to implement a multi-wing?
I don't think they would. I think with the way the regs are now, most teams would just do a single element.
Because I don't see that you'd have such a high aerodynamic advantage, and the aerodynamic advantages you can get, the advantages you can get with better aerodynamics are minimal in F1 and schools anyways. So if it's something, then you would do it for looks, and I don't know whether that's such a smart decision, considering that you have all the manufacturing and the stability problems.
On that manufacturing point, I genuinely think that manufacturing across the competition is a poor point of the competition. Like, it's a part where teams kind of don't think about it much while they're designing. Like, okay, you leave your design for, manufacture tolerances and stuff like that, but that's it. You don't kind of, think about, hey, this is the load it might have to go through, or, this is how it should actually work. It kind of just all comes together most of the time in a slapdash effort. And you just kind of use the experience you've got. So I think it's actually going to encourage more manufacturing points, and that's good. Or it's going to encourage better manufacturing, but at the same point, I think they've probably gone about it in the wrong way.
How do you think they should have gone about it then?
Well, I think they've half-baked it. I think they needed to kind of go further along, like they need to test more things, or they need to, prove different capabilities.
I think that's a very good point. Like, you have these, I think one regulation which is also very vague, which is, I think, safety. Something, I don't know the exact regulation, but it's something, if the judges deem your car to be unsafe, you have to do repairs or you can't race or something like that. And this rule is very vague, and if they would just introduce more safety tests like they did with the Halo, for example, that would, from a team's perspective, put manufacturing more into the focus.
So how would we summarize these rules in 5 words?
Can we do one word?
One word. Okay.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't have a word really.
No, that's
Does Hot Wheels count as one word?
All right, well, that wraps up our look at the technical regulations for this year's World Finals. Let's see what changes, what gets clarified. And yeah, thanks for listening to this episode and watching it.